And that's our president and founder, the Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton. No justice, no justice, no justice. What do we want? What do we want? What do we want? When do we want it? 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 Of these three policemen. If you and I remember that Saturday morning when I went and first met the Bell family and went and saw Joseph Guzman, who'd been shot 19 times by police, still has 6 bullets in him. Trent Benefield, we didn't know what would happen. When we marched and agitated and met, we didn't know what would happen. Now those police are indicted and the trial will start the end of this month. But what you and I must never forget is that to us it's a social and political issue. But to the families, it's their son. It's their husband. That's their loved one. And even if we get justice with these police, we can't ever bring their child back. I went yesterday and spoke in Mount Vernon at the funeral of a policeman killed by other police. You can't ever bring that family back. And one of the things I've always said is that we've got to be sensitive. It may be uncomfortable through a little part of the journey. But in the end, if I die tonight, New York Times may not say much, but some kid in Gina say, he stood up for me. Maybe Brother Bell, Sister Bell, Nicole say he stood up for me. I don't care what the folk downtown say. I want God to say, if he called me, that I answered the call God gave me. Well, right now, y'all made mistakes along the way, but it ain't nothing new for God to use a crooked stick to hit a straight lick. God likes to use people that not perfect. You know, I used to wonder when I read the Bible why God would use rejects. David was a reject. Jeremiah was a reject. Isaac was a reject. You know, these are all people that wasn't well polished and well groomed. But I thought about it. If God used people that had all of the profile and the right pedigree and the right background, we would think it was them. God likes to take somebody you thought couldn't be nothing, somebody you would overlook, somebody that you reduced to nothing, and he likes to pick them up and clean them off and dust them off and raise them up so God could get the glory. That's why I keep telling y'all, it don't matter what mistakes you made in life. I know you done fell. Falling ain't the disgrace. Laying down after you fall is the disgrace. I don't care where you tripped and where you stumbled, get up. I don't care how far down you've been, get up. There's nowhere you are that God can't lift you up. There's nowhere you are that you can't keep going. Don't worry about falling. Get up anyhow. And if you don't have the strength to get up, roll over and look up till you can figure out how to get up. But don't ever accept being down. My mother never finished high school. Daddy left when we was 10. Mother raised me and Joy by ourselves on welfare in Albany projects. But I never knew I was poor. Never knew I was underprivileged because my mother didn't raise me like that. I never knew I was underprivileged till I got to Brooklyn College. I went to sociology class. Sister Donaldson, professor said we're going to study the underprivileged. I said, all right with me? He said, we're going to study people from single parent home on welfare in the projects. I said, he talking about me. Because my mother didn't raise me as to what I didn't have. She used to put a little cleaning towel in the bag, walk to the number 2 train to go scrub floors for the white folk in the village. And she used to make me get up 5:30 in the morning and walk her to the train. And every morning walking, she'd tell me, you can be whatever you want to be. That if God before you is more than the whole world against you, shoot for the stars and don't settle for nothing else. Believe in yourself if nobody believes in you. It used to bother me then, but the older I got, the more I remember what Mama told me. Every time they took shots at me, I remember that Mama told me that if God before you is more than the whole world against you, he'll make a way out of nowhere. He'll open doors no one can open. He'll shut doors that no one can shut. I remember I used to sometimes at night, you know, when Daddy first left, we couldn't pay the utility bills. And for about 6-7 months, Reverend Daughtry, we had to live with no lights and no gas. All the kids on my block used to laugh that I had to do my homework by candlelight. One day the blackout came and they all had to knock on my door to get a candle. But I remember I used to sneak sometime with the blanket around me because the house was so cold with no utilities, and I used to peek in to see if Mama was all right. She'd be in a room humming Amazing Grace. How sweet the sound, saved a wretch like me. I told y'all the other week how I used to be embarrassed in church. We'd get there and every time they would pray, Mama would be up jumping like this. And I didn't like to have all my friends see how she shouted. Well, you know, Monique, about 5 years ago, my mother came down with Alzheimer's and dementia set in, and she don't remember nothing. She don't even know who I am. The night Reverend Daughtry talked about I spoke at the Democratic convention, they sat in front of the TV and she didn't even know who it was that was speaking. I talked about how my mama raised me, and she looked at the nurse and said, he must have had a nice mama. She couldn't remember me. My sister comes, she don't know her. Relatives come, she don't know them. But last year I went down for Thanksgiving, and we were sitting around the nursing home, and she was just sitting there with us, and we started singing songs, and somebody started singing Amazing Grace. How sweet the sound, saved a wretch like me. And somehow Mama broke through the dimension, got up and started doing like this. Somehow she never forgot that song. I know why she didn't forget it. Because when we didn't have food on the table, we had Amazing Grace. When we didn't have lights on, we had Amazing Grace. When we didn't have heat in the pipe, we had Amazing Grace. His grace, His grace, His grace is sufficient for me. He walks with me. He talks with me. He tells me that I'm His own. I won't back down. I know it's hard sometimes. I know it look bleak, Brother Bell, but His grace is sufficient. He'll make a way. He'll make a way. He'll make a way. Yes, He will. Yes, He will. We can walk through the valley and the shadows of death and fear no evil. My God is able to keep us from falling. Stand up, black man. Stand up, black woman. This is your day. This is your time. No selling out. No backing up. This is our
do what they want to do. That's their business. Other civil rights leaders, for various reasons, refuse or can't take a stand or have to go along with the administration. That's their business. But I must say tonight that I know that justice is indivisible. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.